Of funding to replace the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge is in limbo at this hour. WECT News has heard that more than $240 million federal dollars committed to the project tonight are on pause. That's according to Wilmington's Mayor Bill Saffo. He says that pause is part of the Trump administration's pause on federal funding. WECT's Connor Smith went to the Wilmington City Council meeting tonight where members discussed that bridge project. Connor, hundreds of million dollars in funding on hold. So where does the project stand tonight?
Well, council members are still optimistic they will get that money, and for now, they're still trying to figure out exactly how big the bridge will be. Tonight, they asked the State Department of Transportation and other stakeholders to further analyze the project's options. Councilmember Celeste Andrews brought forward a resolution to vote in support of a 100-foot bridge option. But she later withdrew that proposal, and Mayor Bill Saffo offered a new one which doesn't commit to a specific option or specific bridge height, but it does emphasize learning more about the impacts on neighbors and businesses. That resolution passed 7-0. This project is relying heavily on that federal money we told you about. Our media partner, Port City Daily, reporting earlier that NCDOT has said the grant is on pause, and Mayor Saffo tells us things are changing by the hour.
We've never seen anything like this. This is a pretty significant pause for a significant amount of money for a much needed transportation initiative. We hope that that money is going to be there, but right now, who knows?
We've also reached out to the State Department of Transportation for confirmation and some clarity even on the status of that funding. We haven't heard back just yet. John?
All right, Connor, the mayor says it's still in early phases of the project. A lot needs to be done. What's the next step, did he say?
Well, there's still a lot of studies and conversations ahead over the next several years. That includes historical, environmental, and even navigational evaluations that will play a big role in how the specifics of this bridge looks down the road.
And we'll have to continue to follow it step by step. Connor, appreciate the update. Thanks.
Leland's Town Council